Goodness to you. It's Sporty King. And you know, I always say goodness because I don't know whether you're watching morning, afternoon, or evening. But isn't it great to have good in front of your salutation? Hey, if you're welcome watching the video, you can fast forward to less than a minute because we've got less than 2 minutes for today's message. But I always come on early. I mix up the time of how much early I come on, but today is 2 minutes early. Saying I think that that's a good tech tip for you if you're doing a live broadcast or as similar. Well, let me say this after that because so if I say I come on at 1, hey, you're doing something else. So you might not just be able to drop everything you're doing and tune in. So, and then instead I come on, you get the notice 2 minutes early and you can say, oh, good, let me close this out and get every drop of the live broadcast. Not a requirement, just an option. Think about doing that same thing though when you're having your live events, whether it's a online presentation or it's a party. You know how people say, well, let's wait for more people. No, 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 no. No, no, no. You have to train your audience to start when you say you're starting. What's going on, my homeboy brother Jose Valencia and I? We grew up calling him Haas. And in fact, that's kind of how I got a nickname from the block. Yeah, we're less than a minute for today's meeting. I got a nickname from the block of Sporty, whereas my birth name is Rispody. So so that's a good little thank for that little flashback, Haas. Just seeing you made me think of it. And we've got less than 30 seconds for today's message, so that's even more cool. And then you know what I'm liking too? I got this little blue glow over here from the sunlight. Now somebody said, well, you should get the light. You know what? Okay, this is our broadcast. I might think about seeing it if I can do it, but I like it because I think I got a nice little shine coming in. Okay, coming in loud and clear. All right, and hey, it's 1 o'clock, so let's come on in loud and clear and get this thing on a roll. Okay, so welcome, 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 welcome to Glue Wednesday. I call it Glue Wednesday because so often we hear people say that Wednesday is hump day. And I say that kind of comes from old school rules where we used to say that you work Monday to Friday or the weekend. We didn't have the term flex time, though there's always been flex time because you've always had hotels, restaurants, public transportation. So there's always been somebody who didn't work Monday to Friday. They may have worked Tuesday to Saturday, so that's the cool thing. But anyway, so the saying was that Wednesday was the middle of the week because it was the middle of the tradition of the work week that we use Monday to Friday. But I say Wednesday is the middle of a traditional 7-day week, regardless of when you work. It's the day that keeps the week beginning and the week end together. Okay, so that's why I say that's why I call it the glue, and it puts me in my favorite pose, a prayerful pose, and therefore I decided that glue is GLUE. God's love undoes everything. We don't need to hump to get over. We need to find ways to keep it together and keep it here. Bringing us some togetherness is my sister here in Charlotte, who we met in Chicago, Rogercarole. What's going on, Rogercarole? So Glue Wednesday is God's love undoes everything. Not that it will tear things apart, but what has been torn apart, God's love will undo that tear and help you bring it back together. And then more importantly, in the long run, you'll find out getting there isn't the challenge. Staying there is the challenge, wherever there is. So God will help you keep it together with this faithfulness as well as yours. So today I'm closing out my quick okay, let her say hello to Rogercarole. I'm closing out my quick love series, LOVE. Let ourselves value everyone, where each of the messages will focus on one of the letters of the broadcast title. So it's my affirmation, love, LOVE, let ourselves value everyone. And it's from my book Affirmations because we know it acronyms put a word to each letter. And that what I do is I bring the word to life by putting a word to each letter that turns it into an affirmation. Thus, I call them affirmations. And it's in my book, Affirmations. So love, LOV, let ourselves value everyone, okay? And I use the word value because of a cliche we may all be familiar with. And that is we like, hey, God didn't make no junk. So he made everyone. Everyone has value. But I'm sure some would love to add, God didn't make no junk, but some of these disguises will fool you. So, but let's find ways to value everybody. This week, we have a duo of co-authors who submitted words beginning with the featured letter, which is the letter E. So we've got Rogercarole Rogers, who gave me the word energetic, and Ramona Hopkins, who gave me the word empathy. So using my guiding scripture, which is Matthew 25 and 29, to those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who are unfaithful, even what little they have will be taken away. And so my co-authors, with their words, have helped me welcome this week's message, reminding us about something that we all know, and that is that we don't know the whole story. Now, there's a cliche that I grew up with, and just a fun one that says there are always three sides to every story, right? Mine's, yours, and the truth. Today, I'll use them in challenging a bigger chunk of Matthew. That is Matthew 25, 14 through 30. The guiding scripture is 29 and 30, but I'm going to challenge the chunk of 14 through 30, which is called the story of the three servants. And since we kind of know the story, I'm going to rename it the third servant's story. And my three sides will not be mine, yours, and the truth, but the servants, the masters, and the truth. That's what I'm going to be asking you to put in the thread, by the way. I'm going to be asking you if that's the servant story, the master story, or the truth. So when I get to those parts where I ask you that, I want you to put in the thread, in the chat, either an S, an M, or a T, because you think that's the servant story, the master story, or the truth. When we get to those parts, I'll be asking you, and that's what I want you to drop into the chat, okay? Now, one thing I really like about the Bible is that it's read and shared in chunks. And okay, I know that's not a very biblical, spiritual word, chunks, but it replaces another word that begins with the letter C, and that word is context. Whoever's sharing the word often delivers the headline, then the context to make sense and make the case. So here's the context found in Matthew 25, 14 through 15. He called together his servants and gave them money to invest for him while he was gone. I need to be reading it. I'm sorry. He gave 5 bags of gold to one, 2 bags of gold to another, and 1 bag of gold to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities, and then he left on his trip. When he came back, those whom he had given 5 and 2 bags of gold had doubled his money. And the servant whom he gave 1 had hidden his bag by burying it and returning only what he was left with. The master was pissed. So he rewarded the first two servants and imprisoned the third. And in Standard Bible, Good Message Teaching, the headline in Matthew's 25, 14 through 30 is actually buried in Matthew 25, 29 through 30. As it is sometimes buried in our psyche. See, sometimes the context, the headline buries the message. And our 29 is our guiding scripture. I'm stumbling, my bad. I'm back. 29 is our guiding scripture, but I'm going to add 30 to it. And that is, to those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who are unfaithful, even what little they have will be taken away. And then 30. Now throw this useless servant into outer darkness, where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And that's actually how the story of the 3 servants ends. So let me ask you to put in the chat an S, an M, or a T. Whose side of the story do you think that is? The servants, the masters, or the truth? That's how it ended. Okay. To those who use well what they're given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who are unfaithful, even what little they have will be taken away. Now throw this useless service into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. S, M, or T? Put it in the chat. Whose story do you think that is? And meanwhile, if you're watching on the video, I'm pausing a little bit so you still have time to put your letter in the thread in the chat so that we can see. Rogercarole's got an M, Haas has got an M. So they're saying that's the master story. And I know we would see that as the master story. But again, think about our title. You don't know the whole story. Let's continue. In Matthew 25, 24 through 25, 24 through 25, the servant says, well, sir, you are a hard man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid and gathering crops. Oh, I was afraid I would lose your money. So I hid it in the earth, and here it is. And speaking of here it is, and here's my homegirl from Manhattanville Projects, Deborah Lorick, coming in saying that was the truth. Yes, good afternoon to you too, Deborah. You slipped in there on me. So she's saying that was the truth. And that's great because we want to add things together and see whose story was what. Okay. All right. So anyway, Matthew 25, 24 through 25, I want to ask you, whose side of the story do you think this is? The servants, the masters, or the truth? S, M, or T? Whose side of the story? And I don't know, Deborah, is your T for the first story or is it for this one? Because there's the delay in the technology. But Haas has got S, the servant story. Rogercarole's got S, the servant story. Deborah, whose story have you got that at? Whose story have you got that as? Sir, I know you're a hard man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. And here it is. Whose side of the story that is that? And we got, there it is. Okay, so your T was for the first, but what about for this one, Deborah? Whose side of the story is this? S, M, or T? Whose side of the story is this? We got to remember to pause because we're across technologies. All right. We get full participation. And actually, this is buying time. If you're on the video, I hope you put your letter in the thread as well. And the reason I say that because on the video, it gives us a chance to see the whole story unfold the best we can. So all three put S. That's the servant story. All right. Now, but what I want to say to you is that I think this is actually a T and then an S. I think it's the truth as well as the servant story. Why? I want you to notice that the master didn't refute the comment. He didn't say, oh, that's not true. He didn't refute it. And in Matthew 25 and 27, he actually tried to justify the headline, to whom much is given. He tried to justify what he did. He said, well, you could have at least put my money in the bank so I could have gained some interest. So he didn't deny that he was a hard man harvesting crops he didn't plant and gathering crops he didn't cultivate. He didn't deny it. All he did was try to justify it. So I say that yes, it's the servant story, but I also say it's the truth. Okay. Now, I'd like to consider more empathy here for the servant side. You see, I've only heard the story preached against the third servant, against the third servant. In fact, my Touch Point Bible, which is one of the Bibles I use, where it gives you what's called a touch point. The Touch Point Bible takes scripture and translated into modern day analogies to make the scripture more clear. So, and then it has what are called touch points to some of the scriptures, not all of them. Well, this one did have a touch point. And so, as we think about whose story it is, let's look at this the touch point of procrastination. And the touch point is actually for the full story, Matthew 25:14-30. Jesus's parable is about boldly investing the gifts God has given us. But on a secondary level, it might also teach us about procrastination. The one talent servant buried his money in the ground because he feared failure. He couldn't bear the thought of losing the money and facing his boss. Yet tragically, he found that his procrastination and fear led to a total loss anyway. Jesus is telling us we should fear wasting our talents more than we fear failure itself. What are the fears that keep you from bold action for Christ's kingdom? So as you can see, yeah, that's the servant story, and it's the truth. That's the beautiful thing about the Bible. But you have to remember every now and then to challenge, because see, my challenge is that the matter was actually like my challenge is that the master was acting like he believed in the servant and was giving him a chance. Think about it. He did give him a talent. But if we go back to Matthew 25:15, it said he gave 5 bags, 2 bags, and 1 bag of gold, dividing it how? In proportion to their abilities. So did he actually feel the third servant could only handle 1? Whose story do you think that is? The servants, the masters, or the truth? S, M, or T? Put it in the chat. Whose story do you think that is? He gave them all bags in proportion to their ability. Do you think that the master felt the third person could only handle 1? Whose story is that? The servants, the masters, or the truth? We got the truth. 1. We got the truth. 2. And here you come, Deborah. Oh, yeah, no, Deborah, I'm waiting for you. S, M, or T? And look at my home girl reading my mind, because I agree, Rogercarole and Haas is the truth, but I actually do agree that it's the masters and the truth. Isn't this fun? I believe that I do agree that that's the master story and the truth. You see, maybe this is the first time someone has actually trusted that servant with anything. The master still didn't give him that much. Okay. So maybe this is the first time that person was trusted with anything. And then think about it. They were living in a lawless society. He was thinking, whoa, maybe I could get robbed and then be called a liar if I said that, oh, well, I got robbed. So he said, no, let me hide it. We can't equate the law at the level of modern day society. See, he didn't want to post on Facebook that he had the 1 talent, the bag of gold. In other words, we don't know the whole story. And then also think about this. Maybe that third servant was a teenager and he had low self-esteem. You know, he was worried. And in fact, they don't give us the gender, whether it was a he or a she. And they don't. And so, and especially if it was a she, now I'm thinking about it, they would have, women didn't have any kind of rights back then. How much chance would she have had to double that 1? She might have easily gotten beaten up and then had it taken from her. And then what if it's a young boy? The young boys didn't have, the men were still running the show. So the young teenager might have got beaten down. Or again, their low self-esteem, because they were not used to being, add these up. This is the first time someone trusted them. They were given responsibility. They weren't really that confident about what they might do. In other words, we don't know the whole story. And what might have happened if we knew the whole story? And so as we continue to think about whether it's the servants, the masters, or the truth, this was the servant's truth that I believe coming up. I believe the servant gave a true definition of who he was dealing with and acted accordingly rather than take the risk. Of course, who he or she? The servant. I believe the servant was given a true definition of who they were dealing with in terms of who this master was and acted accordingly rather than take the risk. And now in the book of Matthew, Jesus is doing all the sharing of the messages, and I'm certainly not going to challenge his teaching. But what I am going to say is that's what else I love about the Bible. You have to read it in chunks for yourself and then read them again and realize that we don't know the whole story. And you know what? That's mine, yours, and the truth. We don't know the whole story. You know the headline that the Bible wants you to get from the story. In fact, this scripture has another touch point. It's called service. While secular values like self-promotion and competitive ladder climbing are not to be translated into spiritual life, the idea of investing resources for profit is one we are encouraged to adopt. Think back to when Deborah said that was the truth in the first one. In Jesus's parable, three servants received money from their master. Each of us has received resources from God: time, ability, and opportunity. Like the servants in the parable, we can choose out of fear, laziness, or disinterest to bury our resources. Or we can find a way to put our gifts to work to earn a profitable return. Okay. Whether we have 5 bags of gold or only one, God expects us to deliver our lives boldly in his service. God expects us to invest in our lives energetically in his service. Have you identified the resources he entrusted to you? And how might you invest them for a maximum kingdom return? Who are you getting your headlines from? Your best service to your pastor is to read and know the word so that you can confirm what he or she is preaching. The third servant could be you. Remember that first time someone trusted you? Remember when you had the first time your curfew got extended, but you still came home early because you weren't sure? Remember that first time you tried to cook something and you seasoned it, you measured it instead of just seasoning it the way you saw your mother or your father doing? You could be the third servant because the story has to be seen as mine, yours, or the truth. The servants, the masters, or the truth. We've done things to gain and lose other people's trust. And sometimes we get to tell our side of the story. Thank you. That's my message for today. Thank y'all for participating. Definitely thank my 2 co-authors, Rogercarole and my sisters, Rogercarole and Ramona. And you, if you'd like to be a co-author of next week's message, put words in the thread that begin with the letter H in the word thanks, because I'm going to make this my new short series and let this carry us to the end of 2024. If you're receiving this through my email, you can send me your words by return email. So thanks again for joining me through another storm for another great week of glue moments and reminders that God's love undoes everything. Not that he will tear it apart, but what has been torn apart, God's love will bring it back together. And God will never leave you alone as He helps you put it back together. Remembering that you don't have to hump, you have to find ways to keep it together. And whatever you do, however you do, be sure that you know what we do every week here on Glue Wednesday, where God's love undoes everything. Hey, thank y'all. And let me got some H words in there, hectic. And if you're adding an H word, don't try to come up with the topic. And the word doesn't have to be related to thanks. It can be, but it doesn't have to. Long as it's a word that begins with the letter H. So hectic. And yes, we certainly need to slow down. We're coming into the holiday season. It's going to be hectic for a lot of people. So I'm definitely going to be posting some things to try to remind you to slow down, get yourself together, and keep yourself together. And then heaven, our goal, even though one of the jokes that I use is that everybody makes it to heaven. Have you ever been to a crooks? You know some crooks, you've been to their funerals? Where they say they're going to heaven. And you don't know any crooks? Well, what about in the movies? The Godfather, all of the movies, everybody's going to heaven. But how you really getting there? And when you get there, you're going to get to go in. But thank you. And then healing. Wow, we're certainly in a time of healing right now. Okay, but you know what? It's not just because of our United States presidential election healing. We're always in a state of healing because every day we shed something. It's just like, remember, how does a butterfly get its beauty? It has to first become becomes a caterpillar and has to shed its cocoon, so it has to heal. So we're all healing. We have somebody. I just got an announcement before I came on board that one of my good friends, and so I want to say shout out to Bob Froelich, one of my good friends who we just reconnected after almost 50 years. In July, we reconnected at our school reunion, Cranwell High School in Lenox, Massachusetts. So God bless you to Froles, as we used to call him, as well as my other Cranwell classmates who we reconnected and we stay connected. So God bless you all. But yeah, we're all healing from something. And if you've ever had a loss, one thing that you'll know that I always send is that I say, praying in faith, not fear, for your smooth recovery from your loss at a time where speed cannot heal. And I say that because I know a lot of people say, well, wishing you a speedy recovery. I'm not refuting them. It's just like what I did with this broadcast. I'm not challenging the Bible saying it's wrong. I'm doing what the Bible has blessed me to do, and what God continues to bless us to do is to look at it another way and get the whole story, but share it from your viewpoint and still have that sharing. Blessings can come in so many different ways in prayer. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't be wished a speedy recovery. I would like you to recover as fast as you can, but more importantly, I want you to recover smoothly, because speed will not always heal. Sometimes it will, but not always. As well as you could be grieving for 2 years and then you get over it in one day. That could be the speed. See, so just remember that we're all healing. So thank you for that word also, Deborah. We're all healing, and we all deserve to be healed. So as we close out this series, think about it, about hectic and heaven and healing. And what was our series on? Love. Let ourselves value everyone. Sometimes we're going so fast, our pace is so hectic, we don't slow down and say thank you. We teach kids to say it. Eric, say, what do you say? What do you say? But then as we get older, we kind of use thank you a little less. Have you said thank you to the cashier at Walgreens or Walmart, or every time you shop somewhere, every fast food restaurant you go through, every gas, wherever you go, have you said thank you versus thanks? And nothing wrong with thanks, but have you even said that? So say thank you. Don't let life get so hectic that you forget your social grace. And then heaven, as we think about love, what is our Glue Wednesday? God's love undoes everything and invites us up to heaven. And I know I'm going there. And I know I want to. And so I try to do everything I can to make sure that I get there. Even though we know that God's grace and mercy is all we need. You can't earn your way into heaven. You have to Well, maybe you have to burn your way in because you got to go through some trials and tribulations. Oh, just a thought. But anyway, again, love, let ourselves value everyone. You have to heal because the people who lied to you, the people who betrayed you, the knuckleheads in your life, they still have value. And sometimes their value is that they were not supposed to stay in your front two rows, or especially not in your front, not definitely not in your first five rows, but certainly not in your first two rows, and surely not in your first row. Sometimes you have to heal and move somebody back from where they stood in your life, or where they're standing now. It's tough decision. This grown-up stuff is tough stuff, but we keep managing to do it, and we keep healing. All of us have really healed from some things. So every now and then, sit back and give yourself credit for what you've been through versus, hey, just did what I had to do. No, 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 not easy. So keep doing that healing. So thank you again for joining me. And for those that came on, I like my little glow over here. Even because my window is over there, and so even though they say technically you want to have the light behind you, all that kind of stuff, or in front of you, yeah, but I like the glow. So we got to go, and I like the glow. Sometimes they have to be on the sidelines. Yeah, sometimes people, you have to send them to the sideline. Take me out, coach. Sometimes you have to send people to the sideline because they a lot of stuff comes in, or most stuff comes in, or all stuff comes in with an expiration date. Just like it says, from dust we came, from ashes back, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We have an expiration date, and that same thing said I think applies to the people in their life. Sometimes in our life, sometimes our friendships, our relationship has an expiration date. Sometimes some people are in your life to get you through a period. It's that saying, reason, season, and lifetime. People are in your life for a reason. Every time that thing comes up that they came in their life for, you'll know what that reason is, negative or positive. And then the lifetime is why you'll always attribute it to that person. What we control, I believe, is the season. How long will you keep that person in your life to learn the lesson that you need for you to move forward? Okay. So thank you, Deborah. You have a good week also, a good day also, and a good day to all, even if you're watching the video. Have another good day, and I'll see you soon. Over and out. Peace. And I'll do a 10-second countdown because I know there's a delay in the broadcast, and then I'll close it out. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stay safe, everybody, and stay alert. Peace.